Hello there, I'm Nathalia Melo, your unfiltered fit BFF, mom of two turned CEO of a fitness empire. Someone who understands the struggles of trying to stay fit, sane, and sexy, all while juggling work, life, and motherhood. And this is the Unfiltered Fit Life Podcast. Follow along wherever you're listening and join me weekly as I help busy working moms just like you simplify their fitness journey so they can lose weight, regain their confidence, and feel sexy AF. It's time to stop living in the what ifs and hiding from the cameras. It's time to regain control over your body, feel sexy naked, and wear a bikini confidently. People already see you as a super confident woman, but it's time for you to feel the same way too. Let's go. Hello there, fam. Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life Podcast. And today, I've been so excited for this conversation, I cannot even. And you're going to understand why I was so excited about this conversation whenever I start to speak to this friend of mine. She is a local fitness go-to. She went to Arizona State where she played softball. She also has her master's degree in exercise and wellness from Arizona State. 8-time fitness cover model, including Oxygen, Muscle and Fitness Hers, and Flex magazine. She opened up her first gym at 22 years old. Oh my God. At 22 years old, I couldn't even keep a plant alive, let alone open a gym. Anyway, I digress. And over the years, she has built and ran her gyms for the last 12 years, selling her last gym in 2018 when she sold, I might give it away now, Fit Method to create more time freedom in her life and build her online business to help people all around the nation. And now she has had stints on reality TV, national TV, and with her most recent reality TV being on Fit to Fat to Fit that aired on Lifetime, where she had to gain and lose. Oh, that sounds hard. Gain and lose weight for her sister who that lost over 80 pounds in the process. And she was also a regular on Fox 10 News, Arizona, Family CBS, and NBC. Welcome, Felicia Romero, who is also a mentor for entrepreneurs, fitness coaches, helping them build their brand and business online through her new program, The Wealthy Wellness Coach, and host of the Hi Felicia Podcast. Welcome.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. And your podcast title so fits you, Unfiltered. And that's what I love about you the most is just your authentic true self is that unfiltered reality of what you believe. And it just fits you so well.
You know what I say? I joke saying that I talk too much to be two people.
Yeah.
So it's better to be unfiltered and just have be the one thing at all times, because then I would start to get confused as to, the whole social media persona that people talk about. I can't do that.
100%. It's hard. That also takes so much energy to try to be something that you're not or try to please everybody.
Oh no. Yeah. I'm not vanilla cake.
Yeah.
I'm like pistachio.
Yeah.
All right, Felicia, one thing that I saw here on your intro that you didn't mention, which I think it's kind of like a big, important piece of what we're going to be talking about today, that you were IFBB pro, figure pro for a long time. And that's kind of how we met. I think that when I started, you were kind of towards the tail end of your competitive career. So tell us a little bit more about how long you were an IFBB pro and kind of how it started.
Yeah. So to give you a little background, and I'm sure those that are listening probably have some knowledge of NPC and IFBB, especially since they're listening to you because you have that background as well. I was an athlete most of my life. And so going into college, being an athlete, I played softball at Arizona State. I remember, not playing softball my last year of college because I was actually pursuing law. I was going to go to law school, do all the things. And I still wanted to be active in some way in terms of competing. I love the aspect of pushing myself, of being disciplined, of working towards a goal. And I remember being in a gym. It was actually a Gold's Gym here in Arizona. And there was a sign on, by the water machine, and it was an NPC competition. And I was like, ooh, what is this?
Ooh.
And I remember trainers used to always be like, Felicia, you should totally do a show. Now, at that time, figure was relatively new.
What year is that?
I was a figure competitor. This was 2004.
Okay.
The first Figure Olympia just happened in 2001 with Jenny Lynn winning Miss Figure Olympia in 2001. Monica Brandt, who switched over from fitness to figure. Those were the people I looked up to. Those were the idols that I would see in the magazines, right?
Okay.
Very, very like early on. So 2004 was my first figure competition after seeing a sign in the gym. Like, I didn't have a trainer. I had some extensive knowledge. I had become, trainer certified while I was going to college because I could train people. So I was actually training people prior to competing. And it was just kind of this natural thing that I was like, this is kind of cool. I want to see like how much I could push myself. And so I remember going to bodybuilding.com, looking up bodybuilder diets. Like, I was like bro diet. Like, I boiled my chicken. I did salt. I did no salt. I did only water. The term flexible dieting didn't even occur to me at that time. Nor did I think a lot of competitors. That's how I learned. Like, my first coach was Kim Odo, and I remember like I used to have to eat tilapia all day and like asparagus and like, it was just so like bro science at the time. But that's all I knew. And so I competed at my first show, and I got third place at my first competition. And after that, I was hooked. But funny story, Nathalia, my very first competition, I remember as an intern, I was actually in college and I couldn't afford the suits. They're like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, a lot more.
No, they're thousands, boo.
No, they're like thousands. But at the time, there was like, I remember going to a local lady and she's like, yeah, it's going to be like $400, $500. I was like, what? Like, I'm an intern. Like, I don't make any money. And she's like, well, here's what I'll do. I'm going to make you the base suit. And then you can just go purchase this glue, and here are the stones, go to Michael's or wherever craft store and get all the stuff. You can do it yourself if you want, because most of the time spent and work spent and the money spent is because I put all these little crystals on. I was like, okay, I could totally do that. And so I was like my first show, and I was on stage and I was like trying to pose. Now back then,
and these stones were falling.
They were popping off, Nathalia. Like, I was on stage and all of a sudden, like, they're just falling off my suit. I was like, oh my gosh. At that time, when I started competing, I don't know if you remember, or I don't know if you were around during that time, but there were two suits. I had a one piece and a two piece.
The two piece
to wear. And so, so that was my first experience of a show.
That is a good story.
Yeah.
Like, that is legit. Okay. And how long did you compete for? Like, you started in about 2004. It was your first competition. When did you say bye-bye?
Yeah, I said bye-bye in 2012.
Oh, so basically I started, like, my first Olympia was at the first Bikini Olympia, which was in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we've done shoots together and ran across each other backstage. But I think that's kind of why we didn't cross more paths, because you were like really on your tail end then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was struggling then. My last 2 years were probably 2 years too long. The 2010 season really destroyed me. I competed in 6 shows that year, 2010. It was my best placing at the Olympia. But and as you know, back at that time, I was managed by JM Mannion, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
you were too. And so, they're always like, you got to do these shows, you got to do more shows. Like, it was always like, it was never to the benefit,
more,
like even like concern of my health. But I just always was told, like, you got to go and do this, you got to go and do that. And so I remember 2010, I did 6 competitions. I played the game like they all say you should. And I placed my best placing at that Olympia, the Olympia you won. I got 4th place at that Olympia. And that was my kind of my downfall after that. It was like my health just took a rapid turn for the worse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny, a lot of the things that you're saying that, because I kind of heard the same thing. The thing is that I bartended at the time, and then people are like, do all the shows. And I'm like, listen, bro, I can't, because if I don't work, I have nowhere to live and I can't pay my bills. Yeah. So I can't. But I did experience something. And when I'm very honest about competing and, the fitness industry and a lot of the things that we experienced, I think competing at that high level, mm-hmm. people think that is like, oh, it's like competing bash fast. So before we start to talk about all the things that were incredibly and are still incredibly problematic, I just wanted to open a parenthesis, because I've heard you talk about this before, is that for me as an individual, as a person, I do think that there have been a lot of positives from competing, like the grit that you get from it, the resilience. So in your experience, what have you found that were the positives? Like
Mm.
what did you get out of competing on a personal and like professional and human level that would have never been possible had you not competed?
I love this. I love this question because I never look back at anything I've ever done in my life as a regret or I wish I didn't do that. I always look at everything has literally formed the human that I am now. And so I have so many positives. I'm actually so grateful that I competed all of those years and you hit it on the head. The discipline, right? And I do believe, I think sometimes discipline gets a bad rap, but being disciplined actually leads to freedom. And being disciplined actually creates the things that you want in your life, whatever that may be, whether you want more wealth. Well, you're going to have to be disciplined with your money and your investments and the skills you learn in order to create more wealth. If you want to get healthy, like, yeah, it's going to require some discipline. So the discipline that was required, the resiliency, the mental grit, the toughness, just the seeing what you are made of, and also the opportunities that it's created for me as well. Not only being able to travel around the world, but speaking and opportunities, to be able to share my voice, right? To have this like stage to share. And so there were so many positives, and the friendships and the people and the women that I got to get close with and I got to meet was just so many great things.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And I think that that's kind of where a lot of the message gets lost in translation. Whenever I am speaking my truth, which I believe that that's what you're doing with your platform as well, is that I'm not saying that I regret the experience per se. I think it was great. And I think that I would not be where I am today in life and have that resilience, like in business, in even in marriage. Because like in competing, you cannot just be like, yeah, fuck this shit, I'm out. No, like you made that commitment, you're going to keep on showing up. And that's kind of like marriage and business and everything. So, but I do think, and I think you're going to agree with me on this, that there is a big negative that needs to be spoken about, that I feel like people brush it off and be like, oh, she's just salty. Listen, I won the Olympia. I'm not salty about anything. You were topping the world as well, placing top 4 at the Olympia. There is nothing to be salty.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit? I don't want to tell the story about the Rio. I want you to tell me about that Rio that you was the one that I reached out to you. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, holy shit, girl, same.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So tell me about like a little summary of what the Rio was about.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that are listening right now, it's a couple posts back, you'll see I kind of share a story about a time in my life when I was fitness modeling. I was also like really like in the fitness world, fitness industry, where I knew that something had to change in my life. Like I knew that I could no longer have this validation of my body, because what happens when, and I don't know about you, Nathalia, but my experience, like for me, if I were to really kind of uncover some of the reasons why I stuck at it so long, besides the gratification of like, oh, I finished this thing, I'm on stage, like I get to see this finished product. A lot of it for me as well was this self-worth and validation, getting validated physically, getting my self-worth, like my ego, like all of these things being elevated during that time was something that kept me going. And then during the end, and so we talk about 2012, this was right at the last year that I was competing. I had put on a lot of weight after my last show. It was pretty normal for me to put on 20 pounds post-show. And that's a lot of weight for someone who's 5'3", who usually sits at around 115, 118 pounds. And so I had this opportunity by a magazine, Muscle Performance, out of LA, that they, reached out and said, Felicia, we want you on this cover, and, we're going to fly you out and we're going to do this cover spread. Well, I immediately went into like stress mode, like, oh my gosh, I am not cover model ready. And as you know, in the industry is what it is, like I'm not saying the industry is bad, like things have changed, but at the industry I was in 2012, your body was your moneymaker, right? Like,
but it is.
Yeah, it is, right? I mean, still to this day, like your body, they're not going to put, for me at that time, I had to look a certain way. So I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm I have to lose 40 pounds in the amount of time. I think it was like 8 weeks. And so I had already had some, thyroid issues. As you know, when you've been dieting for a long time and you try to extreme diet again, sometimes the body just does the opposite. You need to kind of like settle down a little bit. You need to give it a rest, give it a break, get your metabolism optimized again. Well, my metabolism was not optimized by any means. So I pushed it. And I remember showing up to the shoot and I could see the photographer's eyes like, and I already felt it. I already knew it, but I was not cover ready. And my stomach was still very bloated. And like, you are not cover ready, like very flat out. And I was dying inside. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I already knew it. Like I already knew it. And so they're like, okay, we'll cover your stomach. We'll put on pants. We'll shoot a spread on the inside. And then we're going to give you, 5-6 more weeks to lose the weight and come back or get tighter, essentially, quote unquote. I said, okay. And
I know what that means.
I know, right? I left like so mortified, Nathalia. Like, not only was my body, I was already so fearful that my body did not look the way I knew it needed to look, but then to have others judge you because of it. And then like that just sends you into more stress, And so it was incredibly difficult. So I ended up going back home. I want to say I probably lost a little bit more weight. I probably did unhealthy things too, like take diuretics, do all the crazy things to try to lose weight. And then I go back, shoot. They shot the cover. And I had to like turn my body and like turn my back. I couldn't have my stomach straight on because I had more fat in my stomach. And I'm pretty sure the sides of my stomach are probably photoshopped, but they got the cover in the most uncomfortable, crazy position that I could be in. And that was it. And I remember going home just thinking like, I don't want to feel this anymore. Like, I want to be healthy, but not at the extent of my mental health. I want to be healthy. And oftentimes I think so many people think like physical body equates to health. And that's not always the case. I don't have any, like for me, I look back at that situation. I'm so glad I went through it because it really put me on this mission of not sacrificing your mental health for the sake of, having to look a certain way. But I also know after coming out of all of that, I love being healthy. I don't have any desire to be overweight or be out of shape. Like I want to optimize my health, but my motivation for weight loss and fat loss is different than it was back then. My motivation now is I want to thrive in my 40s. I want to feel good. I want to have energy. I want to look good in that little black dress. Like those are my motivations, but my motivation isn't because I need the validation or I need this woman to look at me and be like, oh, she has a nice body. Like I don't need that anymore, nor do I need to be relevant on a magazine cover. Back then, if I wasn't getting work in magazines, because you have a lot of experience with that too, I didn't feel relevant, which was then equated to my self-worth. Right.
Yeah.
So like there was a lot of unpacking to do there and a lot of healing that I had to do.
Oh, 100%. And it's so funny as you're speaking. It's very, there's so many things. I think I love that you said, healthy and then you kind of like fixed it. Because I think that people have this idea that everybody that they see on a stage is healthy. And I find it interesting because now I'll post a picture of myself eating an ice cream and drinking a glass of wine with my husband when I'm having dinner. And people's like, you're a fitness professional. That's not healthy. And I'm like, you are so deluded. Yeah. If you think that somebody who is stepping on that stage is healthy and having this more balanced lifestyle where I can share an ice cream with my kids is unhealthy. Yeah. Like, and I really think that that's the perception, the problem with the perception. So what made you what made you walk away? What was like the come to Jesus moment for you that you're like, fuck this shit, I'm out?
A come to Jesus moment. I had many, again, like I said, I competed about 2 years too long because I was like in that, I can't retire. Who am I without competing? Who am I? Like this is my identity. And so I remember I had competed in India at the Sharu Classic in India.
What year was that?
That was 2012. That was my last show.
Yeah, I actually was going to, but they hadn't sent my plane ticket until 5 days before my show, which was right after I won the Olympia. And then I ate for a family of 25, like legit.
Yeah.
I'm going to open a caveat here, and I want to put a little bit of a disclaimer. We are going to be talking about some things about relationship with food and possible EDs that if this is triggering for you, you're welcome to leave and come back for another episode. but we're going to be talking about this. But after my Olympia, actually, a lot of my competitions, I had to have a sick bucket by my bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was embarrassed to tell people. So I got invited to that, but I was like, I can't go to India as the reigning Olympia. And because there was so much uncertainty about me even going, I just couldn't control myself and I just ate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned that. I really love that you mentioned that, because for those that are listening right now, the reason why Nathalia and I are in the position that we're in now, where we've healed ourselves of that thing. But if you look at Natalia's body, she has an amazing body, right? You look at her, you would think like, gosh, you're lean, but the reason she is that way, and same for me, I feel like I've been able to like hold the standard for myself of like health and fitness, and also have a great relationship with food. And so I don't restrict. I love to eat foods that are nourishing, that help me be productive in the day. If I knew I had 5 podcasts today, am I going to like binge this morning knowing that it's going to make me tired and unproductive? Probably not. Right. Same thing with Nathalia. I think you get to a place where you've learned how to optimize your metabolism. You've learned what foods work for you. You know that foods are not off limit. So I think when you're struggling with disordered eating, and when you've been restricting for so long, like we did for competitions, what happens is there's this weird mental shift that happens, that everything that you tell yourself you can't have, you want. And it's not normal. And this was normal back then. It's probably normal now, where after the competitions, you all go out to eat and you have this huge cheat meal. And then I eat for the next week until I get, okay, well, now I'm back
Sick.
on track, right? And I would get so sick, Nathalia, like literally so sick. My stomach was so protruded, so sick. And, it's not normal, right? It's not normal to restrict for so long and then completely. And when we say binge, for those who experienced it, it's not like, just overeating,
No.
dinner table, having a second plate. It's literally eating everything in the kitchen sink. And almost shocked at the amount of food that one person can eat. That is a binge eating episode. And I've had many of those, which is, again, what caused me to really shut down everything. I remember I competed at the Shrew Classic and I looked horrible. Like, I did it anyways, because
I love the honesty. I'm here for that. I look like shit.
Will just be completely honest. I was not in the best shape, but I competed. I had gained a bunch of weight after the Olympia. Competed, and I knew that was my last show. And I remember flying back home knowing that it was my last show and that my body had really just, this is time to stop. That was like the wake up call for me. It's just when my body did not respond anymore. Things didn't respond. I also had a really poor relationship with myself, food. I didn't have any control. And it was this whole back and forth of extreme dieting and binging. And it continued even after that show. And I know we talked about right before we jumped on the podcast, like a lot of women think that getting on a diet or competing in a show is going to be the savior to their problems. And I'm telling you, it is not. I lived in that state for a year after competing. Every Monday, I would tell myself, I'm just going to get back on my competition diet. I'm going to get on my competition diet. I'm not competing. I'm just going to get on my competition diet for the next, I'm going to go hard for 30 days. I'm going to lose this weight and then I'm going to feel better. I'm going to feel better about myself. The thing is, I would never feel better about myself because my root cause of what was causing all of this was not fixed. I was on the Olympia stage, placing 4th in the world, still not happy with my body. And I was 40 pounds heavier, binge eating, still not happy with my body. So there's something more, there's something missing that I needed to heal inside of me.
Oh my God. I like you guys, if you're watching, I hope we get the clip of me basically like doing a fucking somersault over here. But because yes. And I think that also, just to add, I think that people keep on resorting and then there is like, oh, I know what to do. I'm just not doing it. No, you don't. Mm-hmm. You know what to do to get on a competition, get ready for the competition. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it's gloves are off. So you don't really know how to navigate life. Mm-hmm. You know how to get skinny. Yeah. And getting in a competition ready. And then they keep on like new season of life, be that married, career advancement, being a mom, being a stepmom, being like a whole bunch of other responsibilities. And they want you to go back to those hours in the gym, eating nothing but fucking lettuce and ice cubes. And then they're like, I don't know why it's not working, but I know what to do. I'm like, but you don't know what to do.
Mm-mm.
This strategy is all wrong. Like it kills me. I love you said that. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I know you've experienced this as well. And now working with women, I worked with women for so long. I was a fitness coach for 20 plus years. I still am to an extent. And, one of the main things, when it comes to, for me, like when I was like well into the fitness space, helping women, it's like, okay, well, why? What is the extra? Again, nothing wrong. I don't shame anyone. If you want to lose weight, amazing. I think that's great to have. I think by all means, I think there's this fine line also, because I think sometimes, especially in this current state, I love the whole like body love movement. I love it. But I think there is a fine line between body acceptance and self-love and then completely going off the rails and like not taking care of your health, right? There's that weird thing that's happened. Like it's almost, I don't know how this has even turned political, but I think it's like wanting to take care of yourself and health and taking vitamins and going to the has turned into some sort of conservative like viewpoint. Turned into politics, which I don't understand either.
Yeah. And I think that I love that you're saying this as well, because on that same train of thought, I think that there is also the whole thing about you just have to be positive. But if the person is unhappy, telling them that they just have to, it's like telling a depressed person, just smile or just like live your life. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
So if we're not addressing the fact that the person is unhappy and giving them the tools to come out of it, just throwing at them that they need to be grateful. Oh, you should be grateful that you had kids, or you should be grateful that this, that, or the other. Like that's toxic.
Yeah.
I call it toxic body positivity.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. So yeah, I want to preface that by saying like, hey, if you want to lose weight, amazing. Like, yes. And if you are happy where you're at, awesome. I always ask, like when women come to me, I really want to lose this weight. I always say like, okay, well, why? What's the motivation behind it? Because when your motivation is limited, or when you feel like you have no motivation, what we rely on are then our habits and the things that you really truly want, because oftentimes people will give up what they really want for what they want right now. Right. And so like we forget about the goal. We forget about the long-term vision that we had for ourselves because of the short-term satisfaction that we might feel from this, whatever it is. And so I think it's an important question to ask yourself if you're listening to this right now, like what's my motivation for wanting to get healthy? Is it to live longer? Is it to thrive? I know for me, I work out and I exercise and I eat healthy and I nourish my body. I don't pedestal food or anything like that, but I want to thrive as I age. I turned 41 this last year and I want to be the healthiest. I want to outrun the 25-year-olds in the boot camp class that I take. Like I want to, look good when I put on that black dress. Like I want to not only look good, but I want to feel good. And when I am feeling good and I have energy and my anxiety is managed and I have a good, clear mental head, it's when I'm nourishing my body with good foods. And it's when I am exercising and I'm living this healthy life. And it goes far beyond food and exercise, as you know. It's like, how is my stress? How is my sleep? How is my relationships? Like all of that comes into play. It's always been something that's really important to me.
But we see a lot of people defaulting even to competition or to going back to a contest prep coach for a myriad of reasons, be that, because a lot of them are much cheaper than getting proper, like it's that story. If you think it's expensive to hire a professional, try hiring an amateur. And that's kind of what we see. So people keep going back to the cheap coaches, the contest prep coaches, when the reason why they got to a space where they are, severely unhappy with how they look and terrible relationship with food is because of that very reason. I'm like, you're fueling the cycle.
Yeah. It's kind of like, this reminds me of people who go back to an abusive partner.
Yes.
It's like, it's all they know. They feel safe with that, but they're used to living in that environment. Maybe with your coach, you want to be told what to do because you lack control in your own life. Maybe you don't know how to lead in your own life and you need that again, coaches are great. I love coaches. I've always had.
Oh, same.
But if you're going back to the thing that got you to the place that you are struggling, like it's time to re-examine, like maybe you need something different, right? So that always reminded me of like, people who go back to their partners who are abusive. I think it's if you're getting the same result constantly, it's time to switch things up or change the way that you approach that certain thing.
And I think also the lack of perspective, especially when it comes to the financial side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, is it crack that you're on? Like, what is it? Because I was talking to a lady a few weeks ago, and same cycle for like years. We're talking about 15 years of the same cycle. And she started naming all the coaches that she had worked with in the past, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, those are all competition coaches that preach the thing that you're trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes, oh, and then I'm speaking to this person now. And I know that specific person that she is thinking about hiring has had a client that died days before the show.
Yeah.
And then she's like, yeah, his price is affordable. And I'm like, do you know what is expensive?
Mm.
A funeral.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to laugh, but it is just like, you just want to shake the person and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's one of those things. And I feel like, and this is what I see from a lot of women who you're speaking about right now. It's those women who, and I used to be it. So I can speak from this place because I used to be in this place as well in different aspects of my life, whether it was relationship, money, my body, but making decisions from a place of fear, making a decision from a place of scarcity. And it's because when you make a decision from that place, like this person is the end all person, I need this person to help me get into a certain, shape, no matter their reputation. I know that they helped me do this in the past. It's like they're making this decision based from fear and scarcity. And when we make decisions from that place, Nathalia, and for those who are listening, we tend to make decisions that are not for our highest good, and that are probably not long lasting and are probably fleeting, right? If you hire a coach because you so desperately, and again, a lot of fitness coaches out there have some great marketing, but not great they're not great at coaching. If you hire someone because they're saying like, oh, I can help you lose this weight in this amount of time, they are calling to your fear. They are marketing to your biggest pain point out of fear. So that fear that you feel like, I got to do this, I got to lose this weight, I promise you it's not going to last. It's not going to last. So instead, take some time. Like if you look at a lot of Nathalia's, posts and things like that, she tells it like it is. She's very honest, very upfront, very, hey, this is a lifestyle. When we come from a place where we make change from a place of desire, like I really want to make this change because I love my body. I want to change my body because I honor my health. I want to spend time with my family. I want to thrive. When we make that decision from that place, those are going to be lifelong changes, right? Like if you take two people, person A, person B, person A is making the decisions based on fear, based on scarcity, based on hating her body. She needs to lose this weight. Nathalia, I got to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks. Like, can you help me? I got to do it. Versus this woman over here on her person B who loves her body, but she wants to improve it. She wants to make it better. She loves the workout. She enjoys her food. She's not hating her workouts, hating her, like person A over here. The outcomes are going to be so much different. The outcome for person B is going to see lifelong changes, and it's going to be in this like frequency of change from desire versus change because you're fearful. And I'm sure you'll hear like marketing people, again, you still see it in like sales books, psychology books, that pain point is going to be the easiest way to sell something. And I firmly disagree, because every woman that I've ever called in that I used fear-based tactics to bring her in, like, oh, you got to do this because this is the money you'll make if you don't, or you got to do this because you got to lose weight because if you don't, like this will happen. If I use fear-based tactics, that woman who comes into my world is a desperate energy.
Mm-hmm.
Desperate energy. She also will leak my energy. She'll message me more. She'll be frustrated when the scale doesn't say what she wants it to say.
Yeah.
Versus a woman who comes into my world based on desire for real change.
Yeah.
And the two energies are just completely different.
So let me ask you a question, kind of like piggybacking on that, because I know you mentioned before like the whole thing about putting food on a pedestal, which I think that that's something that you and I see very much eye to eye, because whenever somebody comes to me and they're like, oh, like, when is my cheat meal? I'm like, first of all, we ain't got that.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's one thing that I'm like, I am never going to tell you what you are and aren't allowed to eat. I am not a grown ass woman's babysitter.
Yeah.
I am going to give you the knowledge to make choices. And given that knowledge, that the things that you learn, you can make choices that align with your goals.
I love that. I love that. You know why that's so important, Nathalia? Because when you give someone a choice, we all have choices we can make. The moment we wake up in the morning, we have a choice whether we want to go to the gym or not. We have a choice whether we want to be positive that day or negative that day. Like, we have a choice, right? And the moment you give someone a choice versus giving them like, this is what to do, this is exactly how to eat, when you put it back in their hands, there is this sovereignty that happens, this freedom that happens, this stepping into your power that happens, that we often lack in diet culture, because most people are wanting to find the perfect diet to follow. Let me just have the perfect meal plan. What do I need? Well, you're taking the power out of your own hands when you do that. And you're taking the power out of you making your own choices, because what happens when on that meal plan, it says you got to have chicken or ground turkey, but you don't have any chicken or ground turkey at your house. Like, I've seen so many women do that. Oh my gosh, I don't have chicken or ground turkey. Like, what should I do? Yeah. You have to learn how to make those choices and know what protein is based on the tools that you're given. So I love that you do that. That's great.
Yeah, no, and here is the thing, and that's something that, it's kind of like finding that happy medium to support people, because I feel like people have been so conditioned by extremes and things like that, that sometimes, like from a coaching perspective, because coaching in paper and coaching in reality are two completely separate things. Mm-hmm. And you know that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to meet them where they are at, give them what they need for that specific transition. Mm-hmm. And then slowly get them to where you know that is going to be best for them long term. So finding that sweet spot where you are giving them power, but meeting them where they're at, because you still don't have the trust.
Yeah. Oh,
it's a dance.
It's a process. Yeah. And good coaches know how to make that dance. They know how to dance with their client. And that's, again, making sure that you're investing in people that have not only been in your shoes, that understand and sympathetic, but also have the knowledge when it comes to calories and calorie deficit and food and exercise, because it's so important. Because you see so many people nowadays saying like, oh, they competed and all of a sudden now they're, oh my goodness. Like, you see so much. I'm like, wait, you just competed in one show. Like, that doesn't make you a coach or to be able to handle a variety of different types of bodies. Like, I don't understand that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And like, not to shade, but shading, because I hate them, but you're having like the Optavia or like a lot of the MLM kind of stuff, like Herbalife and stuff like that. I'm like, those people don't have your best interest in heart, period.
No.
Like, they're salespeople.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and piggybacking on that, because I think that we can't talk about food being on a pedestal and the extremes without the immediate result culture, which is something that is very common in the competition world and also in the quick fixes of today. How long was your process, your personal process, Felicia, to go from having those extreme mindsets to where you are, like where you were in a place that you're like, okay, things are more under control now? What did that timeline look like?
That timeline was longer than I would have liked, but it probably took around a little under 2 years. 2 years of, I remember going to therapy. So I did see a therapist. I changed my environment. I sold my portion of the gym that I owned. I used to own a gym called Pro Physiques. At the time, it was called AZ Pro Physiques. I was part owner. And I had to change my environment. And it took a couple years, I would say a little shy of 2 years, to really heal my relationship with food, to my body, actually. And then this is actually going to shock a lot of people. And I don't think you'll find it shocking, but a lot of women might. When I stopped focusing on my body so much, like the scale, I stopped focusing on eating perfectly. I just focused on it. I gravitated towards foods that I really love. And I realized that I do love eating healthy, and I also have wine or ice cream, whenever I want. Like, there's no off limit. What I realized over that time, those 2 years as I was healing, my weight actually released and I got back to the weight. I mean, obviously with more muscle, I have more muscle in my body, but like my weight just naturally dropped off as I was focusing less on being perfect and all of these things. Like the stress went away, the environment changed, my motivation behind exercise changed, and my weight went back to my normal weight that it just loves to maintain. Like this is where I'd
Yeah.
like to be. And, I sit at around 124 and that's just where I am. There was a
Yeah.
time when I was up to like 160 almost, and I was a binger. I was also extreme dieting. So like imagine like going on fish and tilapia and green beans.
Asparagus.
Yeah, for like, extreme, but then I would binge on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, only to like start again on Monday. And that got me to a place of gaining almost 100, getting to 160 pounds. So, when I released all of that, Nathalia, and I was on my healing journey and I stopped dieting, I stopped putting food on pedestal, what you'll notice is you'll naturally gravitate towards foods that allow you to feel good when that is your focus. And my weight just dropped off. And I didn't have to try so hard, and it just naturally wants to be at this place. And so, I often tell women, as you know, like just being patient with your body, but also like stop putting so much emphasis on the scale, live your life, stick to the habits that are going to get you the outcomes, which are usually just the basics work, and you'll get there. You'll get there.
I love that. And I think that is important to talk about this again, because technically speaking, we are the people who, I know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And even for us, because my timeline was kind of similar to yours, maybe a bit longer, I know what to do. Yeah, but it still took time. It still took a lot of help, having to get help, like from coaches, therapists, professionals, registered dietitian, and all of that. It's not something that just one day you wake up and you're like, all right, so today, I am no longer going to have a bad relationship with food. That's not how it goes. It's a process. And people want that took us years. Even the people that truly knew what to do, they want that in like 3 months.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like we always want something so quickly, and that's a journey. It's not easy to change that part of ourselves. It's like the mental piece of it. It does take patience and time, and having a community. That's why even like the community that you're building with your women, I think it's so important to have and be around people that are going through similar things that you are, because you feel you're not alone, right? And you can get through it so much easier. It's kind of like, as coaches as well, and being in the online industry, having mentors and being around communities that are all in business as well and going through the ebbs and flows of business and life. I think it's so important to have those communities.
I 100% agree. And it's funny because in our community, we have what we call NSV, which is a non-scale victory.
I love that.
And again, I'm not saying that if somebody's goal is to lose weight, that we're not going to celebrate that. Absolutely, because it's part of your goal. But I think that there is a lot to be celebrated on, scheduling a photo shoot with your family when you haven't taken a photo with your kids for years because it made you feel uncomfortable. So I love that you talked about changing the environment and that you stayed 2 years too long in competing. How much do you think that the environment and the expectations that were had of you within that environment, how much do you think that impacted your realization, either one way or the other? Was it like looking around you and being like, what the fuck are these people talking about? Like, why can they not talk about something else other about their like ham glutathione? Or was it something within you?
100%. It was probably a good mixture of both. So like I mentioned, I sold my portion of the gym in 2012, at the end of 2012. So 2 years too long. So I remember when I had sold my portion of the gym, it was a gym that helped competitors. So I was surrounded by it, right? And I was also engaged. The engagement was over by that time, but I was engaged to my trainer, who ended up doing a lot of bad things behind the scenes, cheating on me. It's very narcissistic, just very hard relationship. And so I remember I knew I needed to change my environment because, like you just said, every conversation that I had with any friend at that time or friends that I had at that time were about our bodies or what competition we were training or what we were eating or not eating. We weren't going out to eat and being social. Everyone's carrying their food around and all of those things. So that triggered a lot of those feelings of feeling stuck in that place. So in order to get unstuck, one of the key things, especially for anyone, kind of like, the whole saying, if you are, surrounded by 4 losers, for instance, you're going to be the 5th loser, right? Like, it's like who you are surrounded by also will give you a good reflection of your reality. And so that was my reality. So I had to change my environment. I sold my portion of the gym. Now, this didn't happen right away. Like you mentioned, this was like a 2-year process, but like sold my portion of the gym. I moved out of the city that I was in to another place in Arizona. I had to unfollow people on social media for a little while.
I made the cut.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. But like people that that I found just at that time triggering for me, nothing against them personally. It was my own journey that I needed to heal. And again, when we think triggers are not bad. Triggers only reveal
your symptoms.
Things that we either want or don't want in our life, right? Like it's something inside of us that like, if you see a woman online, for instance, if Nathalia triggers you, like if you see her and, she triggers you to like, and you have this emotional reaction, good or bad, there's a reason. Like if she triggers you because she's vocal and she's outspoken, that's maybe something inside of you that is saying, hey, maybe you need to be more vocal in your own life. Maybe you need to set boundaries. Maybe you need to speak up for yourself, right? If you see me or another woman online that triggers you, that's always a great indication of like something you might want in your life.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's so important to realize. So triggers are not bad. Sometimes if we can look at triggers in a constructive way. So for me, when I was being triggered, it was because I had such a poor relationship with my body and I had gained so much weight that women who were really in great shape, that for me on the outside, it seems like they just effortlessly look this way. That triggered me because I knew I had to work really, really, really hard in order to lose, weight or get lean. And so that was a trigger to me, right? And so, I had to remove that for that moment. When I was healed, like now, I love a beautiful body. Like I'm not triggered by bodies at all. If anything, I'm like, God, I love it. I just had Whitney Johns on my podcast and she's this like,
she's
model.
beautiful.
She's beautiful. I see her and I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. And she's sharing her body. And like, I think that's such a beautiful thing. Right. But at the time when I was going through all of that, I had a hard time with that. Right. And so I think it's really important. So environment is everything. And when you are in an environment that is habitually creating this up level of bad feelings or back down habits that you don't want to pursue or a way that you don't want to live, you have to change your environment. You have to.
100%. That's so funny. I was just doing a training with my girls about that with our members. It's like, you cannot try to reinvent yourself and be this new fit person and things like that and not manipulate your environment. Obviously, if you're married, you have kids and things like that and you have a job. It's not that you can just like, peace.
Yeah.
But there are things under your control that you can change the environment to be able to accommodate your goals. I love that you say this, Felicia, because what you described is literally what made me step away from the industry. For me was like, my husband was a professional rugby player and I saw my husband playing at the highest level and he gave 2 shits about me competing, me being on magazine. He's like, cool, dad. Anyway, he didn't put my accomplishments in the fitness space in a pedestal because he was very alien to him. He knew it was a big accomplishment, but the fact that I competed or not, it was not a big part of my relationship. So it was an easy decision for me to walk away. Yeah. But I think that whenever a lot of your relationships, like it was for you, were directly attached to your accomplishments on the stage, it's several layers of loss because you're not just losing the stage, you're losing a lot of the relationships that you don't even know if they exist because the stage also exists.
100%. 100%. I know that like my person at that time when I was competing and I was at that highest level, this person that I was with pursued me. I do believe he pursued me because of my name. It only, I believe, helped his name. And, there was a lot of underlining motivations behind that relationship that I didn't realize until after the fact. And, he's a really well-known coach in the industry now. I don't ever like to talk badly about people because we all have our own experiences with people.
Yeah.
My experience was not a great one, but someone might have a good experience with him, right? So
Yeah.
I never like to badmouth, and I think it doesn't benefit anybody. But at that time, I do know that that was a big part of my identity as well. And I had this weird, this is probably like super vulnerable and very like kind of vulnerable for me, but like I had this weird thing where I felt like, I didn't have a dad growing up. So there was a lot of abandonment issues. And so the fact that my person that I was engaged with at that time, who was also my coach, the fact that he like told me what to do and he gave me direction, it was like this father figure in a sense.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to continue to do well to get his approval.
Yeah.
If I did well in shows and I got these opportunities, like he would be proud of me and he would find me worthy. And so, in the end, I wasn't worthy enough because he would continue to cheat on me and all of these things, which were his own issues and his own like trauma that he's had. But there was this weird thing that would happen where like I would also continue to compete in order to please him.
And with that, Felicia, because I know who you are referring to, and like you said, I do not have a bad word to say about the person. I actually like the guy, but I didn't, I wasn't engaged to him. So there is that. But with that being said, it's almost like I feel that a lot of times people do to you what you allow them to do to you. And because you were in such a vulnerable state, it kind of became like a toxic mix, which I think that's what happens a lot in the industry, that you're bringing baggages without setting boundaries or having the confidence to set boundaries of what you're going to accept or not.
I love that you said this. I love that you said this because this was a big learning for me. I think oftentimes people forget that we have to take responsibility of our own life. We have to take responsibility, radical responsibility. And what you allow will persist. Granted, my journey, I had to basically like that shed so much light on the cycle that I kept going down with men. And this happened for another 2 years after that relationship, by the way, like would attract men of similar caliber that were controlling. And again, if you notice that you're continuing on this journey, you keep running up with the same people or the same things are happening, we have to take a look at ourselves. What am I doing that's attracting these people? The person that I am today, Nathalia, would not attract those types of people anymore because of what I have gone through, right? Like they wouldn't even come into my world. They wouldn't even be in my energy. But the person that I was back then, absolutely. And so like, this is our work that we have to do. I don't blame anyone. I don't, again, if you're a victim of any sort of like sexual trauma, like, yes, that I do believe like you have to,
we're not trying to victim blame, but I think that sometimes your experience should be looked at and see how can it be best and how can be better managed and addressed so it doesn't happen again.
100%. And that only showed me, Felicia, you're continuing down this path of attracting these same kind of people. You need to change the person you are so that this doesn't keep happening. And that's what I had to do. And like I said, the Felicia today would not attract that kind of person. I don't get these crazy men who prey on me anymore because I could see right through it. Number one, I'm sure you can too. And number two, like I'm just in a different energy source, an energy field that I don't attract that sort of energy anymore.
And I absolutely adore that you say this because what I see, even as a coach working with some women who might be like divorced or heading into another relationship, or they just got into a relationship or another marriage after a first failed one, is that they find themselves in a state of so much lack of confidence that the energy that they're putting out is going to attract somebody who, one, is also somebody who lacks confidence. So you're both going to be stagnant on that place of shit, or somebody who preys on people who have no confidence so they can have their thumb over them. So you are not going to be able to attract somebody who is going to take you to the next level, not take you to the next level, but is going to match that energy if you don't do that work yourself.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And that's just, that has been my lesson here on this earth. And it's like, that journey of who am I being? What am I evolving into? What are the lessons? How am I going to learn from those lessons? Who am I going to be? But also sharing my experiences, because as you know, this podcast, for those who are listening, it's like you get to hear our experiences and what we've been through, but then it allows you to reflect on your own life. It allows you to reflect on the decisions that you're making. And if there's sort of relatability there, I think this is why sharing stories are so important. And I'm so glad that you had me on to share mine. Thank you so much. But sharing stories are so important because you learn from them. And oftentimes maybe you can learn it a lot quicker than Nathalia and I had to learn it, but it's important. It's important to share.
Yeah, no, I 100%. And I think that we are in a position that we were at the top. Like, there's not much to go above where we were. Mm-hmm. And I find that looking at the girl in the magazine, I had a lady come to me. She's like, I want to look like her. And it was me on the cover. And I'm like, so do I, because I do not look like that right now.
Right.
So, I think that being open and honest about your experiences, and that was one of the things that made me walk away as well. It's kind of like, they're like, hey girl, how are you? Is it good? And I can't. Mm-hmm. It's very black and white. If I like you, you're going to know. But if I don't like you, you're also going to be very aware of it. Yeah. And I just didn't like a lot of the superficiality of it. And I think that there was growth on that as well. And I think that us being in the position that we are, of being at the top, learning from it, and hopefully with this message, helping other women stop the cycle and thinking that the only way to get in shape or the only way to release their competitiveness or striving for a goal is getting back on stage, when it's being proven time and time again in very many circumstances that is the very reason that they find themselves in a place of unhappiness and unfulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, so good. So many good nuggets throughout this episode. This was so good. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I love it. No, thank you so much, Felicia, for joining me today. Can you tell us a little bit more about you, what you are up to today, where people can find you? And then after that, I have 2 questions for you.
Oh, I love that. Okay, cool. I hang out over on Instagram. So at Felicia Romero, just my first and last name. I have the Hi Felicia podcast, which Nathalia has been a guest on. I am on TikTok. I'm on all the social media, the different platforms. But I hang out mainly on Instagram. I have a couple of free downloadables. If you just head over to my Instagram, my link tree, I have some stuff for coaches, fitness coaches, some free resources there. And then I do have some things upcoming in the fall, some in-person workshops here in Arizona, mastermind days here in Arizona, and a retreat coming up in October. So a lot of fun stuff happening.
I love it. Okay. So I'm going to put all the details in the show notes. So don't stress out, guys. It's all going to be in the show notes. So if you could only eat one dessert for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Ooh, one dessert for the rest of my life would probably be, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it's called a pizookie.
Oh, tell me more.
A pizza cookie. So it's a cookie in one of those Dutch oven, and it's half baked, and then it has vanilla ice cream on top. So it's a mixture of half baked cookie and ice cream, vanilla ice cream. And it is the best thing. There's this place here called Oregano's here in Arizona, and it is the best thing. It's so good.
Oh, I'm drooling.
Yeah, so good. It's the best.
Oh, what cuisine? Is it American stuff?
Oh, so Oregano's is an Italian place. So it has pizza and pasta and all this stuff. It's so good. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Last one. If you could get in a plane tomorrow and go anywhere, where would you go?
If I go on a plane tomorrow and go anywhere.
For a week.
For a week. My bucket list has been Switzerland. So I would love to go to Switzerland and just run through the mountains. I always see these beautiful, serene videos of the green mountains, and definitely want to go there.
I love it. Thank you so much, Felicia. Love the responses. And thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. But let me ask you, what was your aha moment in today's episode? I would love to know. You can leave me a comment or voice message at the link in the show description. You can also follow me on Instagram and let me know what topics you want to hear more about or who I should have on the show. As for today, This is it for today, guys. I'll see you back next week for another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast.